everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. It's probably one of the most pleasant ways to get and stay healthy. Fall in love. Seriously, people who are in love and have healthy relationships tend to have lower blood pressure, less depression, and can even manage pain better. Up next on Another View, we'll talk about how loving yourself and loving others affects your well-being. Relationship expert Alvean Lyons is here, along with Doug Weiss, author of Life, Love, and Internet Dating. Plus, we bring you the final episode of our series, Excelling in Spite of Jim Crow. What's love got to do with it? We'll talk about it. Another View on Health with my co-host, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby is here, so stay tuned.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. It's the fourth Friday of the month, which means cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby's here with me. Hey, Keith.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. And we have a lot to share today about love and your health.
There you go.
But first is this. According to a study by the University of Michigan, African American men won't go to the doctor because it is too stressful. And while doctors say eat better or exercise more, they don't say how to do it.
Where did you get that from?
They interviewed a bunch of African American men, and this is what they got.
Yeah, well, that's
back.
just going to account that they're saying the truth.
So 100 Black Men Peninsula chapter is bringing the doctor to you since you guys won't go to the doctor. How about that?
That's not
Joining us
work.
to talk about it is Charlie Hill, who is a member of 100 Black Men and also a warrior in the fight against prostate cancer. Charlie, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and let me just say great afternoon to you, Barbara, and those on the show today. This is a wonderful day, another day in which we can excel in helping to make people healthier.
Absolutely, we can. So you're going to bring the doctors to the men tomorrow. Tell us about this forum.
Yes, this is a forum, an opportunity for patients and doctors to exchange ideas, to learn more about certain conditions that we face oftentimes, and we will have Dr. Baril Amin, whose focus will be on prostate cancer and colon cancer, Dr. Nanthram, who will be focusing on cardiology and those conditions that impact our cardiovascular system. We'll have Dr. Carl Gibson talking about diabetes and endocrine issues, and Dr. James Mixon, who's a primary care physician who has to know a little bit about all of these conditions in order to work with patients. He's sort of like the gatekeeper. He sees the patients before he goes to the specialist, and he sees the patient when he comes back. Mm-hmm. This is important to have this understanding in a free and friendly environment. This event, as you indicated, is sponsored by the 100 and its partners. And the major local partner is Riverside Health System. Those 4 doctors are associated with Riverside, and our national partner is Boston Scientific, an organization that makes a lot of the equipment for pacemakers and urinary implants and erectile dysfunction implants. So this is going to be an exciting time for men to come and learn about things that they may be hearing about, and we want them to have facts. The date, of course, is tomorrow, 24 February. And we're going to open the doors at 12:30 at the First Baptist Church East End at 3000 Jefferson Avenue in Newport News. And I repeat, 3000 Jefferson Avenue, Newport News. The doors open at 12:30. The physicians panel starts at 1:30 and will run to 3:30. We want the doors to open at 12:30 so that people can come in and participate and go to the stations for blood pressure checks, for body mass index checks, for glucose checks, and other activities that may be useful given their particular condition.
Wow,
So,
Charlie, you've got it all together then. And let me ask you a question, because when I started the segment, I said that the study was done that African American men in particular don't particularly like going to the doctor. So you think that this will help by making it in a more community-oriented fashion?
Well,
to
we
get doctors
think so.
out?
So if you think about why African American men or men in general may not go to doctors, please understand that we don't have the habit of going to doctors until something hurts, something bleeds, something is falling off. And if you contrast that with women, once a young lady starts having a menstrual cycle, she's in a doctor's office. So that women get into the habit much, much earlier. Guys get into this habit at about 40. So it's not.
Okay.
We should not be surprised by that. We should just understand what happens and think about what happens to girls as they move into womanhood, and what happens to men. Guys typically are encouraged to be tough.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be surprised about that. What we need to do is make it easier for guys to go to a doctor, and that's what we're trying to do. We're taking the doctors to the men.
So, Charlie, let me ask you this. So our show today is about love and your health, and we're saying, what's love got to do with it? You really want women to come with their men tomorrow?
Absolutely, because remember, women having had the head start, they understand how important it is to be in the habit of going to a doctor and in the habit of listening and learning and transferring that into actions that will result in better health. Mm-hmm. With that skill, it's foolish to leave that skill at home or leave it on the sideline. So I would like to encourage mothers and daughters and aunts and wives and girlfriends, come with the men so that you can help him catch up. We'll never catch up because you have 20 years head start on us, but at least come so that the women can help the men get there. So all of our events, as you may recall, we place a lot of emphasis on women being present.
Absolutely. Charlie Hill, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. That is the free Healthy Living Forum being presented by 100 Black Men Virginia Peninsula Chapter, along with Riverside and Boston Scientific. It is tomorrow, February the 24th. Doors open at 12:30 p.m. The Physicians Forum is from 1:30 to 3:30 at First Baptist Church, East End, 3000 Jefferson Avenue in Newport News. It is free and open to everyone. So please come out and take advantage of this health fair that is being presented for you. Charlie, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And let me just thank you, Barbara, for being the most consistent media professional in Hampton Roads in support of these activities that we've been putting on for several years now. We thank you, and our warmest regards to those on the show today, including my doctor, Keith Newby.
All righty. Thanks so much. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. So come on out and take advantage of this. This is not only will the doctors be there for you to ask questions and to get engaged, but also the free screenings. It's important, isn't it, Keith?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay. So what's love got to do with it? Well, how about less stress, fewer colds, lower blood pressure, and you even get to live longer. How about that? Here to talk about the benefits of love and health, our relationship expert, Alvean Lyons. Hey, Alvean.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome back. It's been a while.
You know I love this space, though. This is always home.
And Doug Weiss, author of Life, Love, and Internet Dating. How are you, Doug?
Great.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. And
Alvean
and Doug have a podcast. It is called Love Life.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But so this whole idea of love and relationship, and it's not just one-on-one, although marriage is a part of this, but it's also engaging in healthy relationships overall that helps you to feel better and to live a better life.
Well, as I was listening, one of the things that is so true is that our responsibility in love is not to just take care of your emotional heart, but we're supposed to take care of your physical heart too. It's part of the reason why married men typically live longer. It is true that seeing a doctor is not in the culture of malehood or maleness. But when you fall in love with someone, us women, we're naturally nurturers. So when we love a man, we're not trying for you to die early.
Exactly.
That is not part of the plan. So it's part of the reason why my husband does not have a motorcycle, because I am too cute to be a widow. So I tell him all the time, I bought him a huge print of a motorcycle that we put up in our library because I said, this is the closest you're going to get to one, because I love you too much to want you to not be here. So that same culture that exists inside of love that says that I need your presence, I'm not dependent on you, but I want you so bad, says that I will make it necessary that you go to the doctor. And if I have to go with you, I will go with you. But do understand, sir, you're going to the doctor because you are not going to make me a widow. So in communities of color, because there are the inclinations towards, based on the research, the science, and the statistics, towards our men dying younger for lots of different reasons, but certainly in terms of the way that we eat and exercise and orient towards healthcare, it is essential that we as women make that part of our relationship with our men. That's how you take care of your man.
So Keith, when somebody comes to your office, a man is coming in and he's having heart problems or high blood pressure or those types of things, does he normally bring his wife? Do you encourage that in order to make sure that everybody's hearing the same thing, first of all? And
well, if I want the truth, I encourage them to bring their wives. What I found, I make this joke all the time with when I was a fellow at Duke. I used to work at the VA Medical Center as part of my rotation. So I ran a clinic over there, and one of the funniest things I used to, just smile with, man's is sitting on the table. And the wife is in the corner. So you go in there, introduce yourself. It's Mr. Such and Such. I want to introduce myself, Dr. Newby. Here to take care of you today. How are you feeling? And the first thing they do is they look at their wife and say, honey, how am I feeling? So I say, well, dude, do you not know the answer to that? So, I jokingly say that, and that is a true story. But I say that because what I will find is men characteristically, not all, because I got some that's really into their health. Mm-hmm. Charlie Hill.
Yes.
Charlie is probably one of the most diligent patients I think I've ever met. I mean, he will have everything lined up. He knows exactly what's going on. He is going to be on top of it. Mm-hmm. Most of the patients, though, are not. And what happens time and time again, they will say they're okay. And the wife is in the corner, shaking her head, saying he is not okay. And then when you push him, then he'll start to open up a little bit. And even though I have a very good relationship with my patients, but I still know I will look in that corner because I want to see her reaction when he says, yes, he's doing well or not doing well. And that is a characteristic. I think, and I joked about that comment you made earlier about that research study.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think that it has anything to do with what was it?
The study said that African American men won't go to the doctor because it's too stressful. Yeah, and that also the second part of that is that the doctors will say eat better or exercise more, but they don't say how.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm convinced that it's stress related. I mean, what I'm seeing is several fold issues, but one is, we as a group of individuals tend to feel like if we ignore it, it will go away.
Right.
So I don't know that I would say it's stress as much as it is that we don't want to know the truth. I mean, we'll put off, and we could be, like I said, something falling off. Yeah, we will wait until it's about to fall off. And then even then, I've had where the wife will have to push him to go. It's just, we have this, and part of it, I think it's multifactorial. Some trust issues. You think about, back, and we had a show about this one time about experimentation. So if you don't have trust in the healthcare provider you're working with, that starts part of the process up. Now, again, you have to break through that boundary, and that's part of what our job as physicians is supposed to be, is break through that boundary of trust. That we gain that trust, and that's demonstrating that you care about the individual you're talking to, and it's a way to do that. And I feel relatively good at knowing how to do that. So that is part of the issue. And if you don't have trust, you're not going to get anything out of that person. Mm-hmm. But, I don't think it's just that. And I don't know if I don't care what they say. You survey somebody, I'll be honest with you. Think about it. I don't know how that particular survey was done.
I will pull the study up when I finish so that you can
the question
see
is
it.
How did they ask, what are the things that may make you not want to come here? I don't know how they asked the question, but I'm not sure it's stress. I think it's more than that.
Doug, let me ask you, though, because you come at the whole idea of love and relationship and so forth from a more spiritual perspective. So as someone is in a relationship and you're looking at that spiritual side, how does that also help to reduce some of the stresses in life, make things better so that you can have a healthier life?
Well, for me, I think the center post of this is about emotional health. Whether you're married or just in a committed relationship, when there is a strong bond between two people, you have a condition for emotional health. And that's what leads, I think, to the physical health. Now, I'm looking over at Dr. Newby to see if he's saying yes or no.
I'm just listening.
This is my theory anyway. You're supporting each other. There's things that you do you do for each other, and you do as a result of each other. So we talked about you're going to go to see the doctor. You might call that nagging, and some guys might see it that way. But that's a positive thing, and I'm going to go because I do love you, and I might be a little. I might be a little.
You to shut up. I want you to stop.
I do want you to stop, but I'm going to go. I'm going to listen to you. But I think there are other ways that you support each other. I see a lot of guys who go to the gym. I'm 70 years old, and so I'm sitting there at the gym, and I was there this morning, and I'm pumping iron with a lot of other guys. Why are they there? Well, part of it is not just I want to feel better. Part of it's about their head, and part of it's about, I still want to be attractive to my mate.
Right.
So there's that's also part of this. What I would call a kind of ecosystem of love, about loving yourself first. I care enough about myself to want to be healthy. I care enough about myself to want to be in good shape. I care enough about myself to want to be in a positive relationship. And then the reinforcement that you're getting constantly when you're in a committed relationship that helps you build, some. You were talking about trust earlier, that builds conditions for you to continue that. But I think probably the most important thing, and it's interesting to me, the seminal study on health related to longevity was done at Harvard.
Yeah, I was going to bring that
10,000 person study. But there are also studies that said, there's no evidence that says people who are in marriages live any longer or any healthier. And I think the mistake that they've made in some of these studies is focusing in on marriage. Because as we both know, there are positive marriaes and there are not so positive marriages. Exactly. So if you're in a relationship that's not healthy, that's toxic, or just, frankly passive, the great line from a poet friend of mine said he gave up loving her and he started living with her. If you're in that kind of a relationship, or if you're in a relationship that's toxic, that's not going to be healthy.
And actually,
so you're going to see the negative result. Yeah. If you're in a positive relationship in marriage, then you're going to see the positive outcome. But I think the fundamental factor underneath all of this is about that emotional health. Do you feel good about yourself? Do you feel good about the person that you are in a relationship with? How do they feel about you? And are you positively reinforcing each other, or are you negatively reinforcing each other?
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We're talking about love and your health. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So, Alvean, does this mean if you're single, you're just out of luck?
No. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because there is, and people can certainly go out to Facebook. No, not Facebook. I'm sorry. Go to YouTube to be able to look this up, right? So there was a TED Talk that was done on the secret of living longer. And what came from that, it was done by Susan Pinker, was that above both the flu vaccine, quitting smoking, quitting alcohol or reducing your alcohol, exercise, clean air, was close relationships and social integration. Because when we have connectivity, what that does for us as a whole in terms of our health, and there are it's multifaceted, of course. So you have the accountability of a partner or a person who cares when you seem different, something seems wrong, someone who wants to check on you and make sure that you follow through with those things on the medical end. But also when you're stressed out, when you're sad, when you feel lonely, when you're working through something or struggling with something, you have somebody to work through that with. The Bible even says, if we talk about the spiritual element of it, that one can put 1,000 to flight, but two could put 10,000. Over and over again, there are themes that exist inside of it that speak to the power of connectivity. When we are connected, we are exponentially more powerful together. Our outcomes are better together. If one falls in the field, they're alone. But if there are two falls in the field, the other can pick them up. There are references to that are historical and spiritual, but we see them in social experiences every day. When you are struggling and you have someone, there is even the psychological impact of what happened, the difference between what happens when you mull over a negative thought by yourself. You stay in a loop.
That's true.
But when you say it,
you only have yourself.
You only
to
have
talk
yourself.
To.
You're your own audience. But when you say it to somebody who cares about you, they will interrupt your loop. And by interrupting your psychological loop, we change your physiology. It's part of the reason why it's so important, like Dr. Newby referenced, one of the responsibilities he has as a medical professional is to build relationship that breaks down the barriers, to develop the trust necessary for him to provide optimal care to his patients. Because if they won't talk to him, he is not a mind reader. With all of his expertise, we can't even address what you're doing that's impacting your life daily because he doesn't go home with you. So he needs to build enough of a relationship with you for the trust necessary to be able to care for you.
And I think there's another aspect of this, and it's about advocacy. So, as you know, Barbara, my late wife was diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia. Right. And, under normal circumstances, her life expectancy was about six to 9 months. She managed to live 7 years. Now, I'm not going to claim that I personally am responsible for that. Her physicians are. But I will tell you a quick story. In the midst of transplant, where her immune system was literally non-existent, she contracted a fungal infection. And they started her on an old school medication, and she responded to it. About a week into that, they decided to switch to a newer form of medication that was had a little less liver toxicity. And I began to see, because I was literally living at the hospital with her. I never went home, 24/7. I began to see changes, and changes for the worse. And it bothered me. It concerned me. I called her infectious disease doc and said, look, I think you need to switch her back. And he was pretty resistant to doing that because, there's a trade-off there, as you know, Doc. But then I kept persisting. I kept saying, look, please, do whatever you need to do to assure yourself. But I'm telling you, she was doing a whole lot better on the medication that you had her on before. And finally, he did, and she responded. Thankfully, it probably saved her life. At least that's what he said. But the point here is that I was there as an advocate for her all the way through 7 years that she had after she was originally diagnosed. And I don't say this out of any ego investment, but more than one doctor said to me, part of the reason that she's managed to live this long is that you're in here being a pain in the ass. Excuse me. You're with her for every appointment. You're asking questions and you're challenging us and asking us to look closely at the patient that we're treating. And a lot of things changed. I mean, she went through 3 stem cell transplants.
Wow.
And I think the only reason was that I was just
persistent.
As one doctor said, just to shut you up.
We'll do that to Newby.
Well, going back to, I think, comments that were made, I'll joke about the medical side of it, and I'll say, this is nonsense. But there is a lot of, I think, truth and to this whole conversation. I found that to his point, depending on the toxicity of the relationship, really says what that outcome will be. one of the things I'm learning as I've getting older and my Christian faith has gotten stronger, and I look at the world different now than I did 20 years ago. What I'm finding is, you hear the term, somebody says, this relationship should be 50-50. I always stop people. I say, really, it should be 100-100. But you can only be responsible for your 100.
Right.
You can't be responsible for that spouse's 100. And a lot of times what I'm finding is that people at times, the best relationships from a man's perspective, I listened to her comments about loving her husband. When a man feels that, when he feels that, I'm going to tell you, it makes a big difference in what he's willing to do. Because, we ain't that hard to figure out. Really, we're not. We thrive on that sense of any significant other that is giving us what we need, which is that love and admiration and respect, and just feeling like we're important enough to that spouse that they are willing to sacrifice and do things. I challenge a lot of, patients in the office, and I find myself being more of a psychologist at times than a cardiologist. and I tell them, because their first thing they start doing is complaining about their spouse. It's the first thing they do when I say, how you doing? Well, I got rid of this such and such and such. And that would be the first comment out their mouth. And my response is always, but I'll listen. And then I say, now, do you want me to respond, or am I just listening today? If they say, you can say something, I say, well, let me ask you this question. What's your role in all this? What have you done that is going to make this person feel that they are important to you? Do you really believe? And sometimes they say, I do this and that and the other. And I say, well, let me ask you this. Do you really sacrifice what that person's asking you for, or you just sacrifice what you're willing to sacrifice? Because those all play a factor. Because if that person knows that you're just doing what you want to do, and that person, either he or she has said, listen, I need this, this really will help me in this capacity, and that person's, well, no, I ain't doing that, I'm gonna do this. I said, you may not get the kind of response back you want, but those that do, I'm finding, especially men, I told you, when a man feels like he's loved, that guy would do anything and everything. And it'd be like, all that woman's got to do is say, what you want, babe? They will do, I'm telling you, that is the way we roll, without question.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about love and your health with relationship expert Alvean Lyons, Doug Weiss, author of Life, Love, and Internet Dating, and my co-host, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. So let's talk about what makes a healthy relationship, Alvean. Let's give folks some thoughts. And by the way, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join us. What's your idea, audience, of a healthy relationship? What do you think you need in order to be healthy yourself as well as have a healthy relationship? 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Go, Alvean.
Okay, so I must say thank you so much to Dr. Newby for throwing up that ball so that I can dunk this. Okay, so when he said that men are wired a particular way, and to recognize that there's a difference between what someone might need from you versus what it is you want to give them. One of the things that's important to recognize is that what women need versus what men need are two different things, okay? So I explain them as 3 Ps and the race. Men are naturally competitors, all right? So it's easy to remember things in terms of acronyms. So we'll use RACE. Okay. Fundamentally, men need respect in relationship. One of the worst things you can ever do to a man is disrespect him, especially publicly. There are 100 things that you may need to say to your man, but I suggest you say them privately. It is not in your best interest to make him look small in front of anyone else, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, appreciation. Men like to hear thank you, and they rarely get a chance to hear it because there are expectations we have of what it is they're supposed to do to be a man. So often when they do what they're supposed to do, there's no credit for that. It's when you don't do what I want you to do that you hear all about it. So it is essential that there's appreciation that exists inside of the relationship. C, cookies. There's not a single man on the planet that does not want cookies sometimes. Okay? So any relationship where the cookies have stopped flowing, we have a problem. Okay, Houston, there is a problem. You shut down the bakery and he will go find his dessert elsewhere. Now, I'm not saying that that's appropriate relative to character, but I am saying that there are conditions that we create inside of relationships that force people to be their worst self or encourage them to be their best self. And if you know that fundamentally men need the physicality of connection and you withhold that in order to manipulate an outcome you want, you are creating the atmosphere for the worst possible outcomes. And then E, encouragement. A man who feels clapped for by his woman doesn't have to go find an audience somewhere else. So you need to help him win the race. So that's it when it comes to men.
Wow.
Now you know
how you guys feel.
I love doing the podcast.
She was right on it.
Yeah.
But interestingly, real quick though, when I was a few years ago, I was at a church conference and I was just laughing when you went through that. It was all men, and it was kind of funny. They had a visiting preacher came in. It was a men's conference, so I had to talk about some cardiology things and so forth and so on. But anyway, we got to this stage where the minister made a comment about, just how were people feeling in general. So it was kind of interesting. One guy stood up and said, well, I like life and I love what I do and I try to take care of my family. Sometimes it'd be nice to, hear my wife say sometimes, good job, thank you. Mm-hmm. And then another guy said up and said, oh, man, you felt that way. I felt that way, too. And I guarantee there were 100 guys in that room. And by the end of that conversation, almost every man said the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And it was just, and the echo was saying, I feel unappreciated.
Yep. And that's why I tell women, don't be surprised if the mistress is not that attractive. Because women always think that a man leaves a woman to find a better looking woman. Mm-hmm. But that's not why he leaves. He leaves because women are mirrors. They are a reflection of who you are. And if he meets another woman who could be a 2 on the scale of 1 to 10 in attractiveness, but she reflects back to him that he is a 10 by the way that she treats him, then he doesn't even see her 2-ness. What he sees is his 10-ness reflected back to him in the way that she treats him. So if you don't want to create atmospheres that get you outcomes you don't want, then change what you are doing.
Preach on, sister.
Wow.
Preach on.
Let's talk to Tara in Virginia Beach. Hi, Tara. You're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for the time. I would like to, I'm enjoying your conversation immensely.
Thank you.
And I would like to add to this kind of a rule of thumb, if you will, in reference to what you were just speaking about, to on a daily basis offer your spouse or your mate a compliment.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Every day.
Absolutely.
It's not about being, it's not to be, oh, you're the most handsome man in the world or you're the bestest. To compliment them. Say, you picked out such a nice shirt with that tie, or thank you for doing such, or I appreciate your help here. I didn't even have to ask you. You just did it. Thank you for the card. Just thank you for the effort and the time that they put in to show you due respect.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Tara, for the call. And you guys want to respond to that, Doug?
Well, I was going to speak from the male perspective for just a moment and say that I think this goes both ways. Everything that Alvean said is absolutely true. It's also true that as men, when we are in a relationship that is affirming, that is nurturing that spirit, to agree with you, Keith, we are feral, but we can learn, and we rise to the occasion of that. There's a reciprocity that gets set up in the relationship. When you're getting that kind of affirmation, then you want to give that kind of affirmation back to your partner, and that builds a very positive stream, bidirectionally, and it changes us. It gets us in touch with a better sense of who we are and a better self. And I think that's one of the great things that comes about, and that's what leads ultimately to the physical health, as you were saying earlier. That's what leads to a state of mind in which you are concerned about your health, in which you feel positive about what goes on around you. You don't want to disturb that positive feeling. And so you take steps and actions that contribute to your well-being and the well-being of your mate. When you have a toxic relationship, it goes in exactly the opposite direction, and it takes you down into a place where you're literally throwing obstacles in each other's path.
So, Alvean, you had an acronym for men, which was RACE, for women, rather.
For men, right.
About men.
About men, right.
Okay, so do you have an acronym for men about women?
Okay, so it's not an acronym, but it's the 3 Ps.
Okay.
Women are looking for 3 primary things inside of a relationship. They're looking for passion, provision, and protection. Passion in that we want to know that you don't just desire us. We want to know that you crave us. There's a difference between a desire and a craving. I can have a desire for something, and if I can't get it, let's call it food.
Right.
I'll eat something else. I'm all right. Okay? But if I have a craving for something, I can eat 10 things and I'm still going to go get that thing that I want. So women want to know that you don't just desire me, you crave me. So no other woman would do because I am the taste that is in your mouth. That's number 1. Okay? Women want protection. We want to know that you've got us covered emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically, in addition to physical protection. Right. We don't want to worry about having to look over our metaphoric shoulders in any form or fashion because the person we're with has our back, our front, our side, and our insides. So we want protection. And then we want provision. And it's not to say that we need to live in a 6,000 square foot home and drive 4 different Mercedes. That's not what we mean. But we need to know that when all else fails, you'll do whatever it takes to make sure that we are okay. And if we includes children, that our children are covered, they are provided for, that we are able to live safe and healthy inside of whatever home is our home, we want to know that you will provide for us. A woman who has passion, provision, and protection will give you whatever you want.
You know what I find though is in certain situations, not all, just certain situations, you'll find that there's a trigger point somewhere in there that get things awry. And then what I'm finding as a physician, as I talk to patients and I get these, sides of the story, there's always like, well, it's almost like somebody's always waiting for the other person to make the first move. And I'm finding more than not, then nobody makes the move because they're waiting. And instead of saying, one of the things that, and again, not getting biblical here, but when you look at our responsibility as a man, Paul says, men love your wife as Christ loved the church, which is that's like a powerful love. There's nothing greater than that. So if you really do that, everything else takes care of itself because you are loving this person. I mean, because if Christ sacrifices life for us, that says something about that.
Well, so, that's the misreading of 1 Corinthians.
Yeah.
Since we're there with Paul anyway, the misreading of that is that people think when he talks about love being greater than all other things, they see that as the human love. They see that as the love of man and woman, or man and man, or woman and woman, whatever your orientation. What they don't see is the relationship of that higher self, that higher being. That's what love is. And I just did a blog on this. I said, God is love. Yeah, love is actually God. It's that God within us. It's that nobler part of us. And that's what you're tapping into when you're in a positive relationship. You're tapping in on both sides, that higher self.
The whole idea of a positive relationship, though, it does not necessarily mean that you will never disagree.
Absolutely
not.
not.
There will never be struggles. Because some people take it that way.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Right.
It's not that you fight. It's how you fight that is the issue, because you have to recognize the difference between attacking the issue versus attacking the person.
Right.
And a lot of times when we get emotional, we're not thoughtful about the way in which we express those emotions, we have a tendency to go to you, rather than to own it, to say, I feel this way, which doesn't project onto your partner their intentions. Because a lot of times our anger, we project their intentions. You wanted to hurt me. You wanted this. You hate doing this. You always do this, which is an absolute no-no in a relationship. Don't ever say anybody always does anything. Nobody always does anything. The fact is that he lived before he met you, which means he couldn't always have done this. He just does it with you.
Right.
So don't say that.
Yeah.
But we have to own our communications, because communication is the only way in which I know what's going on in your head. Whether it's your physical communication, your verbal communication, that's how I know what's going on. And how you convey what's going on is what is changing the trajectory of our relationship. You can say the same thing 50 ways. If your husband, I was just doing this at a marriage conference recently, but if your thing with your husband is that he never remembers to take out the trash, let me tell you, there are 50 ways in which you can get him to take out that trash. The next time he's in that kitchen and he takes off that trash, unbutton something. I guarantee you he will not forget to take out that trash again. There are 50 ways you can do it. And if you have to talk about it, then say when he does it, because Douglas referenced this previously, and the same thing is true actually where Dr. Newby is concerned, how men respond to affirmation. Yeah. When he does it, clap for him in a way that means something to him.
You know, I want to touch on this whole issue of women feeling a lot like if a man is doing what he's supposed to do, that he doesn't need that affirmation. Where did that come from? I mean, honestly.
Well, no,
because any person needs that affirmation.
In fairness, I think, guys walk on both sides of this. Part of the time, we're out there trying to do our John Wayne thing. We're trying to be the ultimate guy. I can shirk off, I can shrug off anything. I'm capable of everything. And, inwardly, we may want the affirmation, but we're never going to say that. In fact, we're going to say the opposite. I don't need that. I'm secure. I'm cool. I'm good. But inwardly, there's that, gee, didn't anybody
see?
Don't I get any chops for that?
Well, I think when you think about it, and it may be an issue so much as to how we as men are around our counterparts. Meaning,
right.
You don't want to seem weak. You don't want to seem weak to your woman. I mean, I joke about patience all the time because men sometimes can be the biggest babies in the hospital, and women are characteristically can deal with pain a lot more. And I laugh all the time because I was laughing about it. I did a procedure before I came here today, and and I always tell patients I'm very careful when I'm doing cardiac catheterizations and things because I'm like, I know I may have to be on that side of the table one day, so I'm very careful with that. But I always joke with the techs. I say, but I know if I have to sit on that table, I don't care how bad something hurts. I am not saying anything because y'all not gonna be talking bad about me later on. I mean, because when you sit there when men are really big babies, I mean, the nurses, you listen to the nurses, they like, oh, there's a little wimp in there. He's whining the whole time, and rightly so, I understand. But so we as men have to project this sense of toughness because we don't want to be perceived as weak, because especially to our women, because the worst thing in the world is that we talk about respect and this thing, because we think we may lose that respect.
Absolutely.
If we seem weak.
Yeah, we have an instinct for doing exactly the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Instead of, the moment that we should allow ourselves to be vulnerable, allow ourselves, allow our other half to see that we are human and flawed and frail, and laugh at ourselves and be able to defuse situations. We were talking about earlier about how things can become toxic, and one of the ways is that you get these kind of escalating that neither party really wants to be in a fight, but they don't know how to leave their position,
So
and retreat back to a place of sanity and listening to each other. And so things get out of control and they go nuclear before you realize it. And when that happens, you violated what I believe is the fundamental codicil of any relationship, marriage or otherwise, and that's trust. We started the show talking about this, whether it's between a physician and a patient, whether it's between a couple. If you do not have trust, if you do not have a basis of believing that you are invested in my welfare and I am invested in yours, and that together we can surmount whatever obstacles are going to come our way, then you are not equipped to be able to handle whatever adversity brings you.
So we've got about 2 minutes left, and I want the two of you to talk a little bit about love life, because if you guys, if audience, if you've enjoyed listening to this advice and this discussion about love and health and relationships, you guys do this on a regular basis. So who wants to talk about love life and where people can find the podcast and what it's all about?
Well, you can find us on Apple, iTunes, and all the other aggregated sites. It's the Love Life is the name of the podcast. And it's successful largely because of Alvean. Because of the wisdom that you heard today. And, I just kind of come along from the ride as the untrained commentator, and speak from life experience and from, as you said, largely a more spiritual orientation. And just sit in thrall and listen to the wisdom that Alvean provides. But we have a great time doing this, and we should probably say to the audience that we're fortunate enough that Barbara Hamley is our producer of this podcast.
She brings her brilliance
so
to that
Alvean,
too.
you talk about some of the topics that you guys cover. I mean, you run the gamut.
We really do, because that's what life is. Love is fundamental to life, and there is a life that comes from as a byproduct of really being able to experience true love, finding it, keeping it, learning how to nurture it in the process. We talk about everything from fidelity issues to conflict issues to dealing with the non-negotiables in relationships, divorce, separation, pain. I mean, the list literally goes on and on. It's a very comprehensive conversation about all the things that matter.
And I wish you all had been able to see us. We're not streaming on video online, but Alvean. Oh, we are. So if you're looking online, you'll see that Alvean is a beautiful African American woman. Doug is a very handsome white gentleman, and there's a big age difference. Well,
I'm literally a graybeard.
Yeah, there's significant age difference between the two of them, but the idea is that love is universal, and they talk about the variety. So, therefore, thank you so much for joining us today on Another View on Health.
We're so grateful.
Dr. Newby, as always, we so appreciate you being around, and we will be right back.
I'm with Marcellus, and you all are checking out Another View. Don't go anywhere. Check us out.
And welcome back. In celebration of Black History Month, all month long, we have brought you the stories of members of First Baptist Church Berkeley who have excelled in spite of Jim Crow. Jim Crow laws were put into place to promote the theory of white supremacy by establishing rules that would keep blacks and whites separated. In the final segment in our series, Excelling in Spite of Jim Crow, two sisters, Linda Jackson Nichols and Annie Smith, share some of their experiences and how those experiences shape their desire to succeed in life.
I was a child, age 6, and there was no school transportation for us, no school buses. We walked 4 or 5 miles each way to school, regardless of the weather. As we walked, the white students would pass us on school buses, ridiculing us, licking their tongues out and making faces at us because we had to walk. We realized that it wasn't fair, but we didn't understand why it was like this.
We had to buy our textbooks. And when we bought those textbooks like that, each child would, after you finished the grade, you pass your books right on to the very next ones. And so therefore, we were able to accomplish a lot of the skills before we got to that very next grade. this was one of the things that the teacher used to say to us. You are going to have to compete in years to come with white people. This is the way it was. And she said, you're going to have to do 3 times as much as they are doing. And so you're going to have to make sure that you learn the skills that we are presenting here for you. And you don't have time to sit around and waste time here at school. So we had to learn whatever she was teaching.
When it came to job opportunities as a sophomore and junior in high school, there was nowhere I could do little chores during the summer or anything. So our high school organized a group of students, and they allowed us to go to Windsor, Connecticut, to work in the tobacco barns. Each morning, our rooms would be inspected when we left the camp to go to the barn to work. These rickety buses would come and pick us up and take us to a huge barn. And we worked in that particular barn until the whole barn was filled from top to bottom with the tobacco leaves. So about 30 of us stayed there from the middle of June until the end of August to earn money, because at that time our parents did not have money to buy necessary school books.
Along that time in the Jim Crow era, the schools for black people were called training schools, Southampton Training School. And then for the whites, it was Southampton High School. It didn't matter that we had those old tattered books. We still followed the teacher's directions. We were well-read kids, all of us, and we were able to finish high school, although we had the old materials passed down from the white schools. And so we went on to college as well. A great number of our family went on to college. It's just a remarkable family now.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
Black history, American history. Thank you so much to Victor Bowen and to Lisa Godley for sharing the stories of First Baptist Church Berkeley, which happens to be my church, and the people there who excelled in spite of Jim Crow. I want to invite you to come out next Saturday on March the 3rd from 2:30 until 4:30 p.m. at the Boyd Dining Center, Virginia Wesleyan University, for our next Race Let's Talk About It Town Hall. We're talking about creating a more civil society. Is MLK's legacy just a dream? So come out. We're there. It is free. It is open to everyone, but you must register. So please go to whro.org/talkaboutrace and sign up. Bring your children. We're going to have a civil conversation about civility. So I hope that you will come out Saturday, March the 3rd, 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. at the Boyd Dining Center, Virginia Wesleyan University. For more information, whro.org/talkaboutrace. And that's our show for today. Hey, while you're scrolling through Facebook, go to our page, Another View Radio, and like us, and visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download today's podcast or any other AV show. Plus, you can sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming programs. Next week on Another View, creating a more civil community, is Martin Luther King's legacy just a dream? And we'll talk about civility as a preview to our next town hall. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Paris Bogle answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Thank you so very, very much for listening to Another View.